The first thing I always say is start with your ownership thesis. That's the biggest thing. Because for one, there are like 20 different types of hotels. There are 59,000 hotels in the United States today, hotels and motels. So like you said, where do you go? Out of those 59,000, you can get overwhelmed. Just even looking, just even thinking about it, you're like, hey, that's a lot of hotels. So where do I start? So let's start with coming up with a compass. So what types of hotels do you want to invest in or buy? Where? What's the geographical area? What kind of brands are you looking in? What's your budget? Because that'll determine if you can qualify for the loan. So all of those different things will be a part of your compass. And then once you have your compass kind of nailed down, then you move forward and you say, okay, so I'm based out of Atlanta. So my thesis or investment thesis, I like to look at hotels. Currently, I'm not buying any more hotels, but when I did look at hotels, they need to be within like a 2-hour flight because I go visit my properties every quarter. That's a lot. I have 3, so I have to visit them. So and I have a little one at home. And I have multiple businesses. So it would be too much for me to be traveling over to a different country or traveling to Alaska or Hawaii, or if I had to go to even I do have a management company that handles the day-to-day operations, that will be a lot on me. So my thesis, I need something where it's like a 2-hour flight. Some folks are like, I want my hotel to be a little closer. I want to be able to drive to it. I need to be able to see it, feel it, touch it. So those are some people's thesis. So it's just based off of what's your preference. Some folks are more of the cash flow. Some folks are more of an equity. So it just depends on what all works for you. And that'll help that 59,000 that you're looking at now to even less and as you're more focused.
So as far as the main brands, how much does it cost on average to get into a hotel?
It depends. You're going to hear that word. And I get that question all the time. That's like, what's on average a house? I get that question all the time. And I'm like, oh, a house in Georgia is not the same as a house in New York.
Because the thing with hotel ownership is that most people don't think about it, right? So I think the reason why people keep asking is to know like how much at minimum they need to get in the game, whether it's...
So I always say like 20 to 30% of what you need. So if you're looking at a hotel, so a lot of times I meet people in our community, they like to buy properties that they stay at until they realize how much it costs. Is that... Oh, they want to buy Ritz-Carlton. They want to buy Four Seasons. I'm like, do you know how much they cost?
How much do they cost?
I've seen them for like 400 million.
Oh yeah, that sounds
good. That's what I'm saying. I hear it and I'm like, okay, good luck. I believe in you. All right. But let's start off with a Motel 6. Let's start off with a Days Inn. Start off with something that's less than $5 million. That way, 20 to 30% that you're putting down is like 1 to 1.5 million. That's more approachable. That's more attainable. Meaning you can get a group of friends. I know somebody who's got a contract. They have to put 700,000 down. Your first deal may not be the sexiest deal in the world, but it's your first deal that you're going to get done. So looking at hotels that doesn't have a full service restaurant, you mentioned the brands, Choice Hotels, Wyndham Hotels, Motel 6, those type of brands are good brands to start off with, or G6, good brands to start off with.
And so obviously the average person,
Best Western.
Best Western. So the average person should probably not just try to do this, right? Even if you're coming from real estate, there's probably some level of knowledge that you need to have about that.
Yeah, you definitely want to get the education. I know so many people, I've come across so many people and they're like, oh my gosh, Davonne, I wish I would have taken your course when I started off because I wouldn't have wasted so much money. It's so crucial to have the right team. It's so important. It's so important because you don't know what to ask. So I'm gonna give you an example. So let's say you buy your first hotel, Anne-Lyse, and you like, you know what? I don't need Davonne. I ain't about to call her. I ain't about to take her course. I can figure it out. I got all this real estate in my portfolio. I know what I'm doing. So I've been closing on all these houses. I'm gonna use my same team. So you got the blind leading the blind. Ain't nobody closed on the hotel before. So let's say after you submit the contract, let's say you submit the letter of intent or submit an offer, which basically what that means is you're submitting your offer to the seller as a buyer. You're like, okay, this is what I want to present to you. This is how much I want to buy your property for. So let's say after y'all negotiated, the seller agrees. And so you're like, oh, I got this. I don't need all that other stuff. And after you submit the offer to accept it, you don't know that you have to get approved by the brand. So the lender is like, hey, Anne-Lyse, we need that letter stating that you're approved for the brand. You're like, wait, what? What you talking about? Because you got the wrong team. Nobody knows that. So now your closing is delayed because you can't get closed without that letter from the brand.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So how is it like, so for instance, if I want to buy a house, right? I will make my offer. Most sellers will need to see proof that you can qualify for
They
it.
want to see proof of funds. Yeah,
How
and
does
that
it
goes
work for hotels?
same thing. They want to see proof of funds.
And so that means you would have to raise the capital before you even can come to the table and make an offer.
Yeah, they want to be able to see. I've seen creative ways where people use their family and friends who has the capital to show, and then they go raise the capital to do the deal. So it's a lot of creative ways that you can do it, like using retirement, lines of credit, HELOC, which is home equity lines. But I always recommend that you work with a financial advisor, CPA, or legal. Seek professional or expert help before you just make these decisions, because there's a lot of tax liabilities, legal liabilities. I have 2 lawyers. But to say, people like me, my lawyers say it all the time, Davonne, you're such an entrepreneur. We're just like, we don't go into the minutia, the details. So you want to get someone who's an expert in that field, especially an expert who's done it a couple times, and they can kind of guide you to it, going back to the blind leading the blind.
So for you, you've done this a few times, right? Raising capital. What have been some of the most successful ways you've done that?
Partnering with financial advisors, friends. A lot of it is through referrals. I actually get a lot of my investors through referrals. People, they like the process. They say, hey, I got this deal. I'm invested. I think you should invest in it too. And also, I think it's how I communicate with people. I think the communication process, I guess that's my hospitable background, that trusting. You want people to, well, I'm a good person. Well, I like to think. My grandma raised me to treat people how you want to be treated. The really thing is, I don't want to embarrass my grandmama. You know what I mean? You're not my grandma's girl. So I don't want it to be like, well, I invested with Davonne and she didn't give my money back. I could just hear my grandma in my background now. You did what? How you gonna let? So that's just me just doing the right thing. But not everybody is like that. So you want to do your due diligence. You want to do your homework. Anybody who invests in me, I say, go have your lawyer read it.
So who are the key people that you should have on your team if you even want to think about investing in a hotel?
Lawyer, accountant, hotel broker, connections with the brand, that helps. A hotel consultant if your first time. After your first 2 hotels, you really won't need a consultant anymore. Maybe as you scale, you may need to bring one on to help you manage it. But like the first 2, you probably need a consultant just to kind of walk you through it.
So why is it so important for you to increase the percentage of African Americans who are hotel owners or investors?
Well, I know I go to these conferences. It's more and more now, but I see by me working, so from the front desk and how I got into hotel ownership was working through corporate, right? And working through corporate and asset management. So our clients were hotel owners. So I would see the amount of money that they were bringing in. I mean, they were bringing a lot of money. But I also realized there was not a lot of people who looked like us, who looked like me. And I saw a lot of communities, because we have a mindset of a hotel consumer instead of a hotel owner. So we're consuming. It was a study, 2019, by MGY, 109 billion. African Americans spent $109 billion in travel.
Interesting.
But how much of that money was brought back to the African American community? That means they stayed at a hotel, but we're helping other communities build generational wealth. And so I realized, okay, there's an opportunity for our community to create wealth, not only for ourselves, but for others. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it.